It's time to pick a side. The border war is on the air with BG and TanMan.
Gang, welcome back into the border war. This is episode 130. And after a 2-week hiatus, we are back. I'm the TanMan, joined in studio by BG. BG, what did you do with your week off? Anything interesting?
Well, we were in Raleigh.
Raleigh?
Yeah, up around Raleigh. Well, to be specific, we were in Fuquay, Varina, which is where my wife's family lives, and I mean, you know, I just
visiting family.
Sat around and watched a lot of pro wrestling because there was only one television, and my son, pretty much in charge of that. I have to say though, I watched a good bit of SummerSlam last night because he has the WWE Network, which is nice. I mean, we've talked about it. I like to go back and watch the old Mid-Atlantic stuff. Watched the Briscoe brothers betray Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood last night. Yeah, I know, man.
Were you yelling at the TV?
Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah. How dare you, Briscoes?
I spent my week off. We played golf with some buddies.
No, I was just going to say real quick, though. I told him last night, I'm like, because he was watching SummerSlam, I'm like, tell me when the title, man. You know, they don't even have a title now. They have like 2 titles. How do you have 2 world champions?
I don't know.
I didn't get it. But there's the SmackDown title, and then there's the Raw title.
The SmackDown and the Raw title.
That's it. No,
there's not a unified.
Well, they call it the Universal title, but that's the Raw one. That's the red one. I don't know, and they both look awful. They don't even look like they would be the W on it. But anyway,
man, look.
I came in and watched the Brock Lesnar, who's his name, Seth Rollins, match. I actually found it pretty entertaining. It felt kind of it was really violent. There was one point where Lesnar kind of speared Seth Rollins into the ring post, and I promise you, man, the ring moved a little bit. Like
Brock Lesnar's one of those guys, like, he just kind of comes and goes. And I have a theory that when he bounces back and forth, like every time he fails a drug test or is getting ready to fail a drug test, he goes back.
Yeah.
So he'll bounce back and forth between the UFC and WWE. Whenever a man knocks on that door with a cup, Lesnar walks out the back door and goes back to the other one.
Because Vince ain't making you pee in no cup, man.
They say they are.
Yeah.
Now, we spent the week off playing some golf with some buddies. I got one friend that's really good. And so on the front 9, like, I was hanging in there. You know, he probably had me by
then you blinked
5 or 6 shots. We get to the back 9 and he panics. And he goes, "Oh, why don't we play match play with y'all 2 against me?" So he kicks me off his cart, puts me on the cart with my other buddy who was doing nothing but shanking it left and right, everywhere but down the middle. And like for the next 3 holes, I immediately went in the tank. As long as
he took you out of your zone.
Yeah, I was in here.
Your accountability was gone.
Yes, man. I was raising my game to the level of competition. And as soon as he kicked me out of his cart, into the tank I went.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, very disappointed. I hope that everyone who's listening, I hope that your week off was a little better than my back 9 the other week. We want to thank everyone who has listened the last couple weeks, gone back and listened to some old shows. We are happy to give you some new material. And BG, with that said, we are what? College football season right around the corner.
We have put it off as long as we could.
Well,
and not that we don't love college football, guys, but just surely some of you out there feel what we're saying, that it just has taken over the whole sports world. Nobody has any time to talk about anything else.
I heard this number today, and it's one of those things like I knew, but until I actually heard it said from somebody else, it didn't really register with me. 5 years into the college football playoff, and we've had a total of 10 teams.
Out of a possible
20.
Right.
So we've had 10 different schools in 5 years get a bite at the apple.
But
I'm just saying.
And how many of those were one-timers? Several.
I was just say,
several. Michigan State.
Yeah. Washington.
Washington was a one-timer.
Oregon, Florida State. They were in that first year. They've never.
Florida State made it in the first year.
They were in the first one.
Okay.
Never made it back.
It's really, honestly, it's just Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State. I mean, those are the three that
those are the three main ones. Georgia's a one timer.
Yeah, and I mean, Georgia
and Oklahoma, Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma. I think those are
that's really your final
ones.
four, give or take.
Yeah,
maybe one.
So with that said, we'll start with we're going to go through the schedules for the Tigers, the Gamecocks, and the Tar Heels. So we might as well start at the top. BG, no surprise, the Clemson Tigers. I haven't seen a poll. I haven't really looked for a poll. My guess is that they'll probably start the season off at number 1. We're going to go through the schedules for these three schools. We're going to give you our best case scenarios, our worst case scenarios, and we're going to wrap everything up with our predictions for the ACC and the SEC. We'll start with Clemson. BG, this one should be pretty simple.
We don't need to talk about them very long.
Best case scenario is
12-0.
It's clearly obvious, running the table. But for me, the one that I've got circled, and probably you do as well, Texas A&M, September 7th, second game of the year. If they win this one, then I think that it's an absolute no-brainer. They're going to find themselves into the playoff.
And I don't think Clemson does win that. I think they lose a really, really close game out there in College Station. But
this is going to be at home.
Oh, is it home?
Yeah, last year they were at College
That's
Station.
right, because that was last year. I still think A&M's got a good shot to beat them. And I think
do too.
One reason I think they have a good shot to beat them is because I don't even know. I mean, look, Dabo's done a great job motivating these guys. He really has. Mm-hmm. They've come out edgy every year. But now you've won 2 of them. This game doesn't matter. I mean, it does if you lose another one. But, man, you go 11-1, you're still going to win the ACC. You're still going to be in the Final Four. And your seed doesn't matter. I don't know that. What I'm saying is I think Jimbo has his guys at 105%. Dabo's maybe got his guys at 95% for that game. It's early. We'll see.
I think that I think Texas A&M is on the verge. They're like a year or 2 away from making the playoff and making a real run at a national championship. I could see Texas A&M getting a big win this year, be it LSU or Alabama, somebody in that SEC West. I could see them beating Clemson, but I think early on in the season and the games at Clemson, I think Clemson eventually pulls that out. Now, I'll say this.
But, what are we really talking about here? Well, I mean, it's one game. Well, we know Clemson's going to win 11 games. I think the worst case is that they win 11 games.
After Texas A&M, they go to Syracuse. Syracuse has been like the one team that's been a thorn in their side the last few years. Syracuse, they've lost Eric Dungy at quarterback, but coming back home, back in the Dome, that could be an interesting one. But if they lose A&M, you look down the schedule, I think Boston College could give them some trouble. They gave them some trouble for a little while last year if they fix some of their offensive woes. And even South Carolina, on the road at South Carolina. Look, upsets happen in college football. I don't think South Carolina will beat them, but they're going to have to make sure that they dot all the I's.
And that'll have a lot to do, too, with what kind of season South Carolina's had up till that point, too.
And dot the I's and cross the T's. And so that Texas A&M game, if they lose that, then that really puts them, I'm not going to say behind the 8 ball, but that kind of really would really put Clemson on notice for the rest of the year. Because 1 loss they get in, 2 losses they do not.
Yeah, right. I agree with that. There's not a lot of room for error if you lose to A&M in week 2.
No.
But, I mean, and I'm not even saying this, well, I am primarily saying this because I never pull for Clemson. But, I mean, part of me wants them to lose a game. I want Alabama to lose a game. I mean, can we stop? Can we just
make
stop?
it a little interesting?
Yeah, because it's just so boring.
Right rest
now.
of the way, give me September 28th at North Carolina.
Stop.
What?
Don't go there.
Going the I
told you that before.
I didn't make the schedule.
The absolute insanity that pops into your eyes.
Didn't make the schedule. October 12th.
What was what was that? That's what I'm talking about.
I just had a little clear in my throat.
All right.
October 12th at home against Florida State. Again, another one. I'm not sure what to expect from Willie Taggart in year 2 in Tallahassee. At Louisville, home against Boston College to close out October. And an interesting one, November 2nd, Wofford goes to Death Valley. Any chance the Terriers hang around for a while, or is that just getting snuffed out?
Wofford is they're gonna shorten that game just by the problem is that I think
didn't they hang in there and give them a run for a little while a couple years ago when they went down?
I think that was Taj Boyd's first year starting.
It was.
Yes, it was. It was Chad Morris's first year as offensive coordinator, and Clemson. If I recall correctly, they had to stop Wofford on 4th and goal from tying the game in the fourth quarter, and it ended up winning by about 12.
Yeah,
but that's been like 7 or 8 years now.
I have to look it up. It just doesn't seem like it's been that long.
But I'll say this: I mean, look at what Clemson has been able to do to Georgia Tech recently. Their defensive line is so dominant. I think they probably beat the snot out of Wofford.
At NC State, it feels like the NC State threat has kind of come and gone.
Man, that window's closed.
Wake at home, and then another bye week before they travel to South Carolina. So you're calling 11-1 for Clemson?
Yeah, I mean that'll be my official take. I don't really believe it though.
Yeah,
I just can't. I'm tired of saying 12-0. I've done it 2 years in a row. So this year I'm going to go 11-1.
I'll say 12-0.
You're right.
I say they run this table. Over to North Carolina, they open up the season up in Charlotte in the Queen City against South Carolina, followed by Miami at home, Wake Forest on the road on a Thursday night in a non-conference game.
Ugh.
Those two got tired of not being able to play one another, so they set it up for non-conference.
It's odd, though, man.
Yeah.
That's just who we are now with these massive It's awful.
Like once every 7 years.
Yeah, it's awful.
App State at home, Clemson at home, at Georgia Tech, at Virginia Tech, home against Duke, home against Virginia.
I want to know, though,
Thursday at Pitt.
Is that the first time that's happened?
What?
The two conference teams have scheduled each other in a non-conference game in the modern era. That can't happen much.
That's the first time I've heard of it.
That's crazy, man.
That's the first time
That's
I've
really
heard
interesting.
of it.
I'm going to have to look that up.
So, BG, what's your best case scenario for the Tar Heels this year?
Best case scenario
Best and worst
for the
case
Tar
scenario
Heels.
for
I
the
say
Tar
best
Heels.
case is about 6-6.
Uh-huh.
I think worst case and probably pretty accurate is probably about 3-9.
I tend to agree. I think best case, if you can get to 6 wins.
I mean, if they could start the season by beating South Carolina, I think they could win some games because I think that would be huge. And I told you before the show when you had that crazy look in your eye again.
Not crazy
look.
No,
you can't see what you look like. I looked around for
I
witnesses.
know what I look like. I know I sound like Dennis Haysbert. I
knew you were going there as soon as I brought that up.
I know what I look like and I know what I sound like.
North Carolina they've got great coaching. I love what Mac Brown has done on Twitter and social media. He's turned around the whole feeling around that program. But unfortunately, he has to play with the players that his predecessor did not recruit, for lack of a better word, for 4 years. It's going to take him a little while. I think what you want to see with North Carolina this year is you want to see improvement. You want to see them look better at the end of the season than they looked at the beginning. But your future is probably in high school right now. Yeah.
The last couple of years, North Carolina has lost a lot of close games.
They have.
They I think it was something like 6 times over the last 6 or 7 times over the last couple of years where they have had the lead or been tied at some point in the fourth quarter. They've been hit with an ungodly amount of injuries. So whatever they've won the last couple of years, 5 games, I think that there's more talent and they're a better football team than what their record would indicate.
But to be fair, I mean, I've brought up on the show several times even when 2 years ago when we were both kind of saying don't fire Larry Fedora, his recruiting got really bad, man.
It did.
They were in the 50s and 60s for a couple of those classes and rankings. And for a Power 5 school, North Carolina is not a football traditional power by any stretch of the imagination, but they historically have been a competitive football program. And I don't know how that happened, but it sure did.
Going through this schedule, we both feel like about 6-6 is a best case scenario for North Carolina. Going through the schedule, if you want to find 6 wins, South Carolina, let's be honest, you're probably not going to win that game. Miami, you're probably not going to win that game. So if you want to find 6, I think you start with Wake.
Oh, sure.
I think Georgia Tech is winnable. Duke is winnable.
I think
Mercer.
they beat Duke this year.
The key game on the schedule for North Carolina, in my opinion, this year is September 21st. Appalachian State comes to town. Appalachian State has got 11 guys that are preseason first or second team all conference.
They're no joke.
They are.
I wish we weren't playing them.
Yeah, well, me too. But they are favored to win the Sun Belt Eastern Division. If they lose to App State on the 21st, I've just got a tough time figuring out how they get to 6 wins, because then you're talking about having to beat Virginia Tech on the road or NC State on the road at the end of the year, Virginia at home. I think it just becomes really difficult. As far as a worst-case scenario for North Carolina is, look, the reason we've struggled the last couple of years isn't a big secret. Quarterback. We haven't had one. We've had a dude with angel arm spaghetti noodle back there.
He couldn't settle on a starter.
And every time he would make a change, the kid would come in and he'd lead a nice drive, and then he'd get hurt, and we'd end up having to go back to noodle arm. The worst case scenario to me involves none of these 3 young guys, Rudder, Sam Howell. None of these guys stepping up and taking hold of that quarterback position. If that happens, I think you're still toiling around somewhere in that 2 to 4 win range where you've been the last couple of years. Because you look at it, and they've got a handful of winnable games on there, but there's only one surefire win, and that's all the way down there next to last game of the year at Mercer. You've got a few games. Clemson, you're not going to win. Miami, you're probably not going to win. So you've got a few games that it's an uphill battle from the minute you pull in the stadium in the bus. And you got a lot that you could win, but again, none of those guys at quarterback take that spot, and you're still kind of, like I said, toiling around where you've been.
What's a game in their first 4 that could be a big win if they could? The most likely. That's where I think you need to look. Would it be South Carolina?
I think it would be South Carolina or Miami. If you want to steal one,
I think you've got a better chance of beating South Carolina than you do Miami.
If you want to steal one, I think South Carolina or Miami, the first 2 to start the year.
Okay. All right.
I'm not picking either one.
No, I got you, man. But we're not to that point anyway.
I'm not picking either one, but I think you want to steal one. It's one of those first 2. Over to the Gamecocks, we just hit on it. They open up in Charlotte with North Carolina, Charleston Southern, followed by the buzzsaw that comes the SEC. Alabama at home, at Missouri, home against Kentucky, at Georgia, home against Florida, at Tennessee, home against Vandy, App State, at A&M, and then they close up at home against Clemson. BG, I'll let you have the floor with your Gamecocks. Where are they going? Best case scenario for South Carolina.
Best case scenario is 8-4.
That's exactly what I've got down.
Now, you remember what I said last year at this time?
I do not.
10-2.
I do remember, yeah.
And now my actual prediction,
I was ready to laugh you out of the...
No, I think your best case was 9-3. You got to remember, man, a year ago, this looked like it was going to be a very different team. Now, keep in mind, again, maybe I'm making excuses, but they lost everybody on defense. Like, they didn't even have... They had guys coming over from offense just to play cornerback. A.J. Turner, who was our second best running back, was starting at cornerback against Clemson. Cornerback. Okay, so that happened. But, I think 8-4 is their absolute best, and I'll flip that around and say that the worst case is probably about 4-8. And I think I'm calling them. I'm being a little bit optimistic, maybe a little bit garnet glasses on. I'm going to call their actual record at 7-5 this year.
Yeah,
I think 6-6 is a real possibility.
I basically agree with everything you said. You look at the schedule, and I think you've got 4 built-in losses.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Alabama, Georgia, A&M, and Clemson. I think that's a done deal.
And like you said, you might win one of them, but you're not going to call it at the beginning of the season.
No, you might still, but it's going. If you win one of those 4 games, I think it's going to be a massive upset.
Oh, yeah.
It's massive. I think, look at the schedule. You've got 4 built-in losses there. And so to get to 8-4, everything else has to go right. You're talking about beating Florida, who a lot of people...
Well, see, here's my thing, though. I'm going to say that. Of those 4, to me, that one is much, 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 much more likely because Florida doesn't ever seem to play well against South Carolina, and I'm not sold on them.
But listen,
and it's not a football issue. I think things might be going a little bit amok down there in the locker room and in the community, and
maybe, but you can also, if you want to find it, you can find a lot of people who have got Florida as the trendy pick to win the East, not Georgia. Not Georgia. A lot of places are high on the Gators. A lot
of people aren't incredibly well versed in college football the way we are.
Well, that's true, and some of them just say random stuff
they really do, don't
just
they?
To aggravate fan bases. I don't know. I think you've got, like I said, I think you've got 4 built-in losses, and I think you've got 4 more games where it could potentially be losses. I think North Carolina is one that is you should win, but again,
you're not. It's not.
You're not going to pencil that. You're not going to write that in stone. It's not a softball. On the road at Missouri, and then we just talked about App State a few minutes ago, discussing North Carolina's schedule. Those 3 along with Florida. I don't see you losing all 4 of them because I think in your scenario, going 4-8, that would mean that you lost your 4 built-in games and you lost all 4 of these toss-up games. I don't see that happening. I think your worst-case scenario is probably somewhere around 6-6 because I think at worst you'll win 2 of those 4 games.
So you think the best case is 6-6, and the worst case is 6-6,
and
the best case is 7-5. Well, I see what you're saying. I get your logic.
I think your best case is 8-4, but that would mean everything went right and you beat Florida. You didn't have any hiccups on the road. Like I said, at Missouri.
What happens if they win every game? I haven't done the math. If they win every game they should, right? Lose every game they should, and they beat Kentucky and Missouri. Does that put them at 7-5?
See,
because that's what I think.
I would count Kentucky as a game that I'm penciling that as a win right now.
It's at home.
They've lost Benny Snell. They're replacing some guys.
Beating them by now.
They're replacing some guys. So I'm counting Kentucky.
In fact, I think Kentucky. We're going to get to this. We're doing conference previews, right?
Yes.
I think Kentucky's going to have a terrible season. But that game at Missouri, to me, if there is a key game, and it might sound crazy, having lost to Kentucky 5 years in a row, but I'm going to say at Missouri. That's the difference between 7-5 and 6-6 right there. That game is the most pivotal game of the season, and it sounds crazy. And the reason it sounds crazy is because South Carolina's not playing for anything. Honestly, you're hoping you go to a bowl game and score a touchdown and don't get beat by Virginia 28-0.
I think you're right. I think Missouri could be a measuring stick for the season because it comes right after Alabama. So listen. Again, I don't think you're beating Alabama. It might not even be pretty. It's going to be on national TV. It's one of those CBS 3:30 games.
Yeah.
If you go out there and Alabama boat races you at home, the following week, how do you come back on the road in kind of a tough place to play? How you answer that bell after Alabama likely handles their business against you? If you come out and play well at Missouri, I think that's a great sign. But again, if you come out and let Alabama beat you again the following week, then your season could start to get rocky.
That's a microcosm of, to me, what the theme for the whole season is for Muschamp and the Gamecocks. How do you answer the bell, man? Because this, I do not think this is he going to keep his job year for Muschamp? But I think this is he going to be on the hot seat next year for Muschamp? Because I think he has an extremely lenient president in his favor. Not president, but AD in his favor. I don't think Ray Tanner has the mentality to fire a 6-6 coach. I just don't. I'm not even saying he should. But
let me ask you this. I think, I said I think your worst case scenario is 6-6 because I think I think you'll win 2 of those 4 kind of toss-up games. Let's say I'm wrong and you're right. Let's say the bottom kind of falls out. Bentley just isn't the dude. He kind of struggles. Nobody steps up on defense. Let's say they go 4-8, 5 or 7. The schedule doesn't get easier next year.
No, it doesn't. But I think next year would be the year where he would have to do something or be fired. I don't see a scenario where he does it this year. I just don't.
So 4-8 and Will Muschamp.
I've heard Ray Tanner all but come out in interviews and say that. Okay. That he's not. That he thinks that 90% of the time when people make quick fire decisions on coaches like that they end up paying more in the long run than they could have. There is some evidence to back that up in some cases.
it's not like you've got a senior quarterback, but it's not like he hasn't recruited quarterbacks coming behind him. So, like, if you struggle this year, you're not going to look at Muschamp, and because coaches and quarterbacks are always tied together. You're not going to look at him and be like, well, there's nothing left in the cupboard. It's kind of run its course. There are guys behind that are going to come behind Bentley and Luke Doty, Helinski.
Well, it will be 2 years from now, but right before he could play.
Who's that?
Doty. I mean, he'll be there next year. He ain't going to play next year.
Well,
I know, but you got to think with Helinski in front of him that's
you never.
I've heard good things about the Kerry Joyner too. Like, no, Doty's film is sick.
I've seen a lot of people all over that kid.
It's
like it's not going to be Helinski. It's going to be this kid.
I've heard him described as more than one person, and it's actually the first thing I thought of when I watched his film. He is a Connor Shaw that can throw a football. Because Connor Shaw could not throw a football. Let's just remind ourselves of that. Half of his completions were sideline passes to Alshon Jeffrey, who would fall forward for 19 yards. Like that was the signature Spurrier.
And yet he's probably the greatest quarterback they've had down there in like 30 years.
But there haven't been. I mean, it's hard to make the argument if you want to get into that conversation. I mean, Ryan Tannehill. I mean, I'm sorry. He was the guy.
Who?
Tannehill.
Steve,
sorry. Steve Tannehill was the guy. You look at all his passing stats, man, it ain't even close. I'm stuck in Dolphins land right now.
That's a dangerous place to be.
I haven't let go of the fact that Ryan Tannehill should have been a great quarterback.
That's a dangerous place to be. Almost as dangerous as the Twitter rabbit hole I went down the other day.
We're not talking about that on the show. But no, Steve Tannehill's the best quarterback that's ever been. Don't throw Todd Ellis at me. And don't throw Connor Shaw at me. Connor Shaw won a lot of games. He had a great defense. All 3 years he started. He was a good quarterback.
Connor Shaw,
great football player.
He came around at the time when the program was at its peak. Some of it was because of him, but a lot of it, I think he was just kind of along for the ride a little bit. Like I said, that defense is amazing.
I don't think there's a lot of difference, honestly. Maybe this is blasphemy. I don't think there's a lot of difference on a football uniform between Jake Bentley and Connor Shaw. I think the difference is Bentley finds himself pressured. Now, I don't mean by the defense. I mean he has no running game. He has this constant urge to push the ball down the field, and it gets him in trouble.
Well, I think Jake Bentley, and this is a different discussion, but I think Jake Bentley, if you put him on some of those other teams, he would be loved and revered.
Oh, yeah.
I think his supporting cast has just not been good enough.
That's what I'm saying.
Period.
That's what I'm saying.
Bentley's fine.
And there have been plenty of times when he knew going out, snap one, I'm going to need to score 40 points to win this game.
Yeah.
And that's when you turn the ball over.
Yeah, I think he's a fine college quarterback. I just think his supporting cast during his time at South Carolina hasn't been as good as Connor Shaw's was.
And like his best receiver's been Brian Edwards for 3 seasons, right? Brian Edwards is probably going to break Sterling Sharp, Alshon, all those records. But it's because he's going to play for 4 years.
Right, I was going to say, but you see that and you're like, you watch Brian Edwards, and do you ever, have you at any point have you ever watched him and been like, man, he's one of the best receivers we've ever had?
No. And I think that is the very definition of what that offense is right now.
Yeah.
I think getting Ortre Smith back will be big. I think you need a guy like Shi Smith to really step up. I think Shi Smith needs to have an Ace Sanders kind of he needs to be that guy when he touches the ball, like Debo was when he was healthy, that like everybody in the stands kind of stops breathing for a half a second. And then Tavian Feaster or somebody in that backfield needs to give that offense I'm not looking for an 80-yard touchdown, man. We don't need Travis Etienne. We need a guy that can get 3 yards.
Just don't be awful.
Every time he touches the ball.
Just don't be awful.
Yeah.
That's all they need from their running backs. Just don't be terrible.
Or be healthy.
That too.
Just carry the football.
That too. So we'll get into our conference predictions now. I guess we'll stay in the SEC since we're already there. We'll start out west. BG, no surprise. I've got the Crimson Tide at number 1. I've got LSU and Texas A&M a close second and third, and it wouldn't surprise me if each one of those 3 teams beat the other one. If they all went 1-1 against one another, I've got Auburn.
You know what the tiebreaker is in that case, right? The 3 head coaches have to play a game of 8 ball. Most people don't know that.
8 ball?
Just those
8 ball,
three
or is
teams?
it paper, rock, scissors?
Don't even start, man.
Because it's not rock, paper, scissors. I don't care what
there is
the
not
rock, paper,
another
scissors
person on
Association
earth
says.
that doesn't live in your family that says paper, rock, scissors. No one.
That's the game. It's paper, rock, scissors. I asked like 5 people last week, and they're like, "Oh, it's paper, rock, scissors."
Lie through your teeth.
I'm telling the truth.
Who are they? Produce me some film.
Oh, well, yeah. It's on video somewhere. We're all on video at some point in 2019.
Okay, take your foam hat off. Keep going.
We're all on
do
video.
Your little thing. Do your show.
But
I'm going to sit here and watch.
That's what
so
you do.
got Bama,
that's what
LSU.
you do most of the time anyway.
Okay, yeah.
Bama, LSU, A&M. I got Auburn 4th. Mississippi State 5. I would love the Bulldogs. I think last year I jumped all over Mississippi State to score a big win. Never did. I think that time is kind of come and gone for right now. I've got Arkansas 6 and Ole Miss at 7.
My differences are just stunning. Not really.
Not really, huh?
Bama number 1, LSU 2, A&M 3, Auburn 4. I've got Ole Miss at 5. I think Mississippi State takes a pretty big step back. I think the Dan Mullen hangover is in pretty full effect now, and I've got Arkansas finishing last. You feel like they should be taking a step forward, man, but there's just nobody in there that I see them beating.
All right, let's see. I'll pull up schedules.
I think Arkansas goes winless in the SEC.
So Alabama has got LSU at home and A&M on the road. Let's see what A&M has. So A&M is at LSU. So I guess they all play one or the other one at home, one on the road.
Yeah.
I could definitely see a scenario where they
absolutely
just all kind of beat one another and all wind up being 11-1.
And I'm not picking Bama to run the tables again until they do it. And then they lose one game.
In the East, I am not one of these people that is jumping on the Florida Gators. I'm Georgia Bulldogs all the way on this one. I do have Florida 2nd. I've got Missouri in 3rd. I've got the Gamecocks at 4th. Kentucky 5, Tennessee 6, and Vandy 7. What say you?
Kind of similar. I've got a couple of differences. I've got Georgia winning the East. Now this is going to sound strange. I've got Missouri finishing 2nd, and the reason I think that happens is because they're not going to be very good. And I know it sounds strange. I mean, it's almost like I do these things separate. I think South Carolina's going to beat them when I'm doing South Carolina's record, but if Missouri finishes 2nd, then Missouri's beating Carolina.
Well, not necessarily. How many times did you guys beat Georgia and then Georgia finished ahead of them?
But Missouri just has this knack for getting hot at the end of the season and, beating Tennessee, beating Kentucky, beating Vanderbilt, boom, 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 boom. And all of a sudden you look up and you're like, they didn't.
All of a sudden, hey,
how are they in 2nd place? But they will be. I've got Florida finishing 3rd. I just don't think it's there the way everybody does. I don't know if they've got a defensive secondary right now. Man, they've lost like 7 guys this offseason, and all of them seem to be cornerbacks or safeties. I've got South Carolina finishing 4th. Tennessee, who I do not think is going to take this massive step forward under Jeremy Pruitt that everybody thinks they are at least this season. I think Kentucky takes a huge step back. I think Benny Snell was about 5 of their wins, and I don't think the talent's there. Mark Stoops, it feels like he has been playing with fire up there for 5 seasons now, and I think this season Kentucky gets burned, and I think Vanderbilt's awful.
With Kentucky,
Vanderbilt's dead last.
With Kentucky, it feels like we've kind of hit the glass ceiling. Like we've seen all Kentucky's going to do,
and I think they know that.
Yeah,
too.
They have hit their ceiling in Lexington. Real quick, pulling up the Missouri schedule, but pretty high on Missouri. Looking at this thing. Don't be surprised if they hit. They've got a bye week the first Saturday in November. Don't be surprised if they November 9th at Georgia. If they hit that game undefeated. Listen to the schedule: at Wyoming, West Virginia, Southeast Missouri State, South Carolina, Troy, Ole Miss, at Vanderbilt, and Kentucky.
And just remind yourself, a West Virginia team that doesn't have Will Grier.
Have Will Grier.
Yeah, breaking in a new quarterback.
So Missouri beats South Carolina. We could be looking at Georgia and Missouri in an undefeated showdown on November 9th.
I give that at least a
50%
50% chance. Yeah.
Over to the ACC. We'll start in the Atlantic, home of the national champion Clemson Tigers. Of course, the Tigers are going to win the Atlantic Division again. No surprise.
Are you kidding? You got them at 1?
Hey, listen, I'm not about going out on limbs here. I'm not playing it. playing it safe. I've got Boston College at 2. I've got Syracuse at 3. Florida State at 4. Wake at 5. NC State at 6. And Louisville at 7.
Okay, here we've got some pretty big differences then. Aside from Clemson being number 1, I've got after reading a lot of stuff in the offseason, I'm a little higher on Willie Taggart than a lot of people are right now, and I've got more insight into what exactly he inherited down there.
Oh, it was a mess. There's no doubt about it.
And I think this is the Atlantic is about as down this season as it's been in a while. So I think Florida State finishes second. I think the Wolfpack finishes third. Again, not because they're a great team. I just think they're better than these 4 teams that are underneath them. And yes, you're right. Boston College plays a good football game, and Louisville has, but they fell off the map last year. Syracuse looked good against Clemson a couple of times, but I think BC finishes 4th, Syracuse finishes 5th, Louisville, and then Wake. And we talk about that every year, man. Those 4 teams, it just feels like it's all big one unit. Like that, you could take them and mix them and match them, and it doesn't really matter. In fact, nothing in that conference matters because there's only one team in it. And really the question to me, the only intriguing thing about the ACC Atlantic is, can Florida State finish second? Do they start to climb back out of the absolute pit that Jimbo Fisher and Jameis Winston left them in? Because that's what happened.
See, where did you have NC State?
I got them third.
See, third. You look up and down this thing.
Just because I think they beat those other 4 teams.
I say they're breaking in a new quarterback. I know. I think Finley's gone. You look at Syracuse; they're breaking in a new quarterback. But listen, Willie Taggart, he might as well be from Missouri because he's going to have to show me that dude hasn't done anything. His career record is below 500. I get that he got a mess down there at Florida State when he took over. I think he's in over his head at that job. I said it from the very beginning.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah,
because he has a bunch of winnable games. A bunch.
Does.
I mean, like he should win. And they looked like a train wreck last year at times, man. They didn't even look competitive. So
they had empty stands with one shirtless guy sitting up there reading a book. You've seen that?
Yeah.
So now I am not high. I'm very high on Boston College though. I think A.J. Dillon is.
They're an easy team to like.
Yeah, I think A.J. Dillon is going to put himself in the mix for being the best running back in college football next year.
You just feel like Boston College is one of those teams. If we actually believed the things we say we believe about college athletics, Boston College is one of those schools I feel like we should all be pulling for. But we'll see how they do. I hope you're right, man. I hope Boston College. I hope they win a national title. There, I said it.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. They do. I wouldn't go that far. I'm still not completely over the 1994 NCAA tournament, so I'm not that high on Boston College. But I hope they at least beat Clemson. Is that fair to say?
I think there's a lot of people who hope somebody beats Clemson.
In the Coastal, now this is the division where I think we said it
Power
last year.
Conference.
This might be the worst Power 5 division in all of college football. But I think that there are about 5 teams that how many teams are in division? 7? I think you could throw 6 names in a hat and
pull one out.
And that's basically what happened last year when Pittsburgh wound up in the ACC title game.
Sure.
My Coastal division,
I think that's exactly what we said last year.
I don't think either one of us got Pittsburgh right.
No.
The concept was correct. I'm going Miami 1, and one that I kind of went back and forth on. I've got Virginia at 2. I could easily see that being the other way. I've got Virginia Tech at 3. I've got North Carolina at 4, but again, because I think we're going to win some of these games that are kind of going to be toss-ups. I've got Duke 5, Pittsburgh 6, and I think Georgia Tech is a mess. I think Jeff Collins has taken a group that has been recruited to run the triple option, and that is not going to be an easy thing to try and open up with a team built to run the option like that. So I think they're going to really struggle this year.
I've got Miami at 1, Virginia at 2. I hope Virginia wins a national title. I'd feel a lot better about that bowl game.
I bet you would.
I hope Virginia and Boston College play each other for the national title. I'm not sure how that's possible. It doesn't matter. You got Virginia Tech.
What a
3.
ratings boom that would be for an ACC. The ACC championship game has never been a ratings bonanza, but get Boston College and Virginia in there and watch the numbers just plummet.
No, that'd be like.
Oh gosh,
trying to think. What would that be like? That'd be like the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Sacramento Kings for a whole ball of wax.
I remember one year the ACC championship game when the thing was still fairly new was like Wake Forest and Georgia Tech. Oh my gosh! And the score was like 9-3. It was awful.
Got Duke at 4, Georgia Tech at 5, and Pitt at 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how I see it, man. Now, after you guys beat us in week 1, you'll get to rub all this in my face, right?
Here's what I think. I think you don't really believe that, and you are just channeling. You are channeling your inner local sports talk radio host, and you're just saying stuff to just aggravate people.
I'll tell you what it is, though, man. I talk about these teams individually, and I think one thing, and then I look at the whole conference, and it's kind of like, we've talked about this with the NFL, and it's really obvious in the NFL. When you start, picking your wins and losses, right? And then you go back and look and you realize it's mathematically impossible for what you think is going to happen to actually happen because all those wins mean someone lost.
Yeah.
Like, you go
I
down.
think everybody in NFC East is going to go 12-4 next year.
Yeah, probably not.
No, probably not.
Well, I don't think anybody thinks that either.
Well, no. You got the Cowboys and Eagles and the Giants, but outside of that.
Oh, please.
That's about it. All right, that's it for episode 130. We want to thank you for tuning in.
You're going to finish a strong third in that division. Strong third.
Who?
The Redskins, man.
I thought you said y'all. You can follow us on Twitter.
Second.
We'll see. We might finish 4th if we don't stop dinking around with this off-the-field stuff we've got. You can follow us on Twitter at The Border War. I am at Tar Heel TanMan. He is at BG_Border War. We're on Facebook. You can also email the show at CarolinaBorderWar@gmail.com. And go in there. You've got a YouTube account. Go check out our good friend Austin Blassingame. If you're a gamer, if you like, what was the name of the game?
It's Minecraft, man.
Minecraft. That was it. Minecraft. If you're a Minecraft fan, go check out Austin's YouTube channel and watch some of the cool stuff he does. Have you got anything else to add? Constructive to add other than, or are you just going to say more random stuff to?
I found an article I started to tag you on Twitter about the other day about how ghost peppers had saved someone's life somewhere, but I can't remember. Yeah. We used to talk about ghost peppers a lot more on the show.
No, we didn't.
Seneca Wallace.
You did. Seneca Wallace probably eats all the ghost peppers.